Hey there guys, it is Vizonex, and I am back here today with another Cython tutorial for you. Since you guys seem to really like my last episode, and it's gotten more views than really I have ever hoped to ever receive on a video before, I have decided to just go ahead and make you guys another tutorial about Cython. And in this episode, I wanted to cover docstrings and how annoying it is to deal with docstrings, especially when you're compiling to machine code and you're trying to tell your other programmers if you're making like a Python library how to use your code and how it works. So in this episode, we will specifically take a look into docstrings and how exactly we are supposed to do that. All right, now let's get to it. Okay, so we are in my code, and as you can see, we haven't done anything yet, but we are going to be doing that. I have an input file full of numbers, and I think my goal is going to be to add up all of these, maybe not all together, but in lines, we could add these two numbers together and, get our results. So that is what I'm going to try and do today. Um, and yeah, and I will show you guys how to Cythonize your PYX file, turn into a PYD or an SO if you're on Linux. And yeah, let's get started. So of course I just did this to write the input file. So that's cool and all. I clicked on the wrong thing, but there's how I wrote it so that you guys get the behind the scenes look, I guess. So let's get rid of this since that's not why we're here. And let us do this. So let's start with writing the function to, open the file, read out the contents, turn the string into integers, etc. So we start with pretty much anything we want, but in this example, I will do cpdef, which means that it's both can be both referenced in C and in Python, and then so this will be a unsigned integer since we don't know what type of integer exactly it is. The reason why we put unsigned is actually due to the fact that in Cython these are registered as like your long variable integer, which is actually just 32 bits. So you got longs, you got integers, you got floats, although I think that's Python related. I think in C it's actually called a double. Not a, there we go. Double, and then there's trying to think of what else. There's arrays, which we won't be taking a look at today, but maybe next episode, and mallocs too. So yeah, there's a lot more variables in C if you're used to writing Python. But if you are familiar with C, you probably already know what these variables are and what they do. So that's cool. Okay, so let's get back to our function, which is going to be called, I'm going to call it int to string, actually no, string to int. Since it's doing a string to an integer. So that's why I'm going to call it that. And here comes where we, would put in our docstring. All right, so now we just put in our, input. I'm just going to put in that it's an I. And there we go. It's now predefined. And remember to always use this thing above too if you're dealing with, Python 3 and whatnot. Otherwise, it's going to think that you're using, Python 2, and it's not going to be very good for you. Okay, so now we just put in return, and this is where I'm just going to convert it to an integer. And there we go. Now this is pretty redundant, but I'm putting this function in so that you guys get the idea of how to go about defining some of these functions. But now let's continue. So I could say cpdef, but in this example I'll just say define. You know what? Let's do cpdef. Let's just say we want to write our stuff in. So let's just say add to file input, and our input will be the string, of course, and then we need an output so that we can have another file to write our results to. So now that we've done that, we could actually just do this. I'm going to predefine our ins and outs. I'm going to put a underscore over here because otherwise it's going to think it's this, which it's not. And let me predefine that it's an object. And then same thing with out. There we go. So now I can say with open, and then we can say our input that we want to use. And for this part, we just put in our input, and then we say comma, and then output. I think in case to not confuse ourselves with the actual function, I'll do this. And there we go. Let's get rid of this. That should not be there. I don't know why I put that there. And now we can begin our reading of the file. So for line in, pretty redundant, but this is the idea. So when you're reading, larger files, for instance, you don't want to use read lines because otherwise, especially like when we're reading like a file that's over 100 gigabytes, like the newest RockU 2021.txt, which is a very large, password list, just full of passwords. We do not want our computer or whatever we're running our code with to crash, and that's a problem. So to get around this, we specifically create a generator to read out our files with. So let us do that. So so before we just add in our numbers, let's also say with open underneath here, output, and this will be, actually no, the input's actually for reading, and then this is for writing. I don't know what is wrong with me today. Okay, so we have all this, as you can clearly see, and what we can do is we could define this as does addition to files. Okay, there we go. So now, when we do our string to int, we can specify that. Actually, let's use a map function right here. That might be smarter. In fact, I know we said we were going to use this before. Let's actually get rid of that. Let's do this. This might be a little more optimized, and I'm not like a teacher, so I could do whatever I want. Okay, so now we're going to do line.strip. This is going to get rid of, like, let's just say we have A and B. It's going to print out with a /n, at the end of it, and we do not want this line. We just don't. So that's why I'm using this strip function to get rid of this new line. So that's why I'm going to do that, and then dot split. And then there we go. So that is going to create two different integers for us to use right in here. In fact, we could just say add, I think. Actually, let's create a function for this. This should just be 2. So let's just make this into a tuple. And then explode it inside. There we go. cdef add, since we're just going to reference this in C. And I'm just going to put inline add, inline unsigned integer, add, and then we have another unsigned integer. Now I have to remember to do this correctly, otherwise it won't compile correctly. And there we go. So now we can just return with A plus B. There we go. Simple as that. We don't have to do anything else with that. Perfect. And now we could say out.write, and I'll convert that to a string. I know this gets really long, but you want to make sure that your stuff is pretty optimized. Now I know this might look confusing to you, but basically I'll cut this into steps of what we're doing, just in case. So if this helps you out, please let me know. There we go. That's a little bit nicer for you guys to read, at least, since we do not just want to, have all these, commas, or no, whatever these parentheses right there, whatever they're called. Okay. Now, when we go to write our stuff, we want to make sure, too, that we have a new line at the end of it. Wait. Okay, right here. I was getting a little confused because I'm not used to writing like this. But you get the idea of how to use these functions. Okay, perfect. So we add this in from this string, and then that will separate our lines from each other. And then, yeah, that's how the function is going to, operate. Now we just need to make sure that we actually don't need a docstring here, since it's going to be referenced in C, and since we aren't using C, we are using Python. This will not matter. Okay, perfect. Now we can actually go ahead and Cythonize this code. So let me go ahead and run the command Cythonize -i, which means in place. If you want to see the file, you put in -a as well, and then you put in your name of your code. It's called addertools.pyx. That's what I called it. Your name might be different, so depending on what name you probably put down, that will be the one that you're going to do. And now I press enter, and it's going to create a HTML because I put an A, but if I just put -i, it'll create just the C file and the PYD file. So I'll just create all three of these so that you can just go ahead and see the HTML that it creates. Uh-oh. Possible inconsistent indentation. Let's try this. How the heck am I getting this wrong? Wait a minute. finally. So what inline does is that it optimizes the code even further. That's what I'm trying to do. Guess I'm going to have to rename this. Okay, so I made better code now. So let's actually just compile this one up. I put the addition function inside of the thing instead of on the outside. And I'm going to do something too to optimize this even more. So disabling bounds check will give you a performance boost if you're not using like, let's just say like list and -1. So because we aren't using negative numbers here, let's just say for accessing lists, we are set to go with not using bounds check. That will speed things up significantly for us. So now we can actually just go ahead and Cythonize our code. Typos. Okay. Perfect. Finally. And as you can see on this end, it started to write our C file, our HTML, and it's going to create our PYD. And there we go. Now we can't read this because, of course, it's in machine code, but there's a look at our compiled machine code. So let us now talk about where the problem comes in. So when we create a new file called test.py, the problem comes in when we say from adder tools. It recognizes that import. It doesn't register this part right here. It doesn't, show us our docstring or any of that. So how do we get around this problem? Well, it's called Stubfiles. It's called a PYI, and then we can just, take our function from before, from adder tools, and we can copy and paste the first parts of this, put it into our stub file, and then, yeah, this is just a look at stub files. We don't need to write anything in here since it's a stub file. Let's make sure it looks nice. And there we go. A nice, beautiful stub file. So now when we go back to importing, it actually shows up. As you can see, it says does addition to our files. There we go. I'm going to run this now and say add to file, input dot text, output dot text. It's going to write our new one. It's going to read the old one, do addition, and then make a output.txt file. So now we could do just that. All right, so here's our output.txt. Let's see if it wrote, and it did. Would you look at that? Beautiful. I am now going to copy this path off, and we are going to take a look at the HTML for it, since I specifically want to show you guys that you can look at your own, code and see what needs to be optimized. So allow me to just go there. Perfect. So as you can see, the yellow lines hint Python interaction. As you can see, we have tons of it, unfortunately, but you could definitely optimize. I could definitely go back in and optimize some of this code. But yeah, that is a look at, this type of stuff. And let me know down in the comments if you thought this was helpful. And please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.